Muslim apologists. Love them, hate them. We shouldn't really hate them. Muslim apologists have been around, particularly on the internet, for, at this point, decades. They're the giants of Dawah, the unmistakable names. You have your Muhammad Hijab, your Ali Dawahs, your Shamses, and so on and so on. And they have their own interesting quirks. And there's always some drama somewhere regarding someone and someone else not getting along. But that's absolutely nothing in comparison to a couple of people I'm going to talk about today who are also Dawah apologists, Islamic apologists, defenders of the faith, so to speak, who have an interesting past and an interesting way of doing Dawah. Now, it's no secret that there's been a couple of a couple of big stories in the media regarding these two apologists for one particular reason, and it's not a particularly good reason. And I'm pretty sure both of these guys have been dropped by every other Dawah team quicker than they can drop a hot potato, because no one wants to be associated with these guys because of the horrifying and evil and criminal acts that they are accused of. Let's jump into it. The first person that I want to talk about is someone by the name of Menge. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies, Menge, if I'm not getting that right. I am, of course, talking about the Muslim apologist. That's how he goes by on YouTube. He used to be somewhat popular in the Dawah scene. He will be making response videos to David Wood, to Rob Christian, sometimes even Islam Critiqued, I think, got a video from him. So he was pretty out there making content fairly regularly. Except, and you might think, well, nothing unusual about that. That's pretty much the bread and butter of what an Islamic apologist do. What makes him so unique? Well, it's kind of, you know what, let me show you. So we can just scroll through his content like this. There we go, there's a video he made, Islam Critiqued. Going through this, it looks pretty normal stuff. It talks about copyright claims, talks about Gospel of Matthew, announcing the launch of Muslim Apologetics Academy, did Jesus appear in your dreams, a critique of Paul. Pretty much just the usual stuff, really. Nothing here that looks odd or strange. One about Rob Christian, what about Christians? What? What? Why? Why would you make that video? Why would you? you know, for me, it's not the fact he made a video addressing it that I find odd, just hidden among all his normal content of actual apologetics and polemics, but rather it's the fact that he titled it "What Child Porn?" No, child porn. What child porn? What child porn? Like what? And then it's just a picture of his face, and it's just, given his appearance and given that he's just put himself next to those words in his own video, so he has an own thumbnail where he looks that way. He's not doing himself any favors. That's not the way he should have done that. But anyway, you know what? He did it. So be it. I think, and the video is kind of as cringe and as awkward as you kind of imagine it to be. He just sits there looking at the camera and basically says, look, I'm accused of this, but I didn't do it. And it's like, okay, all right, sure. Here's a video of the Malaysian intelligence services tracking Menge down and raiding his home and confiscating his computer equipment, his hard drives, because he's accused of having watched child porn.
Kegiatan haram mengakses, memiliki gambar dan video lucah, pornografi kanak-kanak dan dewasa akhirnya tumpas. Ini berikutan maklumat berkaitan kegiatan ini yang dilakukan oleh seorang individu yang tidak bertanggungjawab. Bertindak di atas maklumat yang diperolehi sepasukan polis dari bahagian D11 Jenayah Seksual dan Kanak-kanak Jabatan Siasatan Jenayah Ibu Pejabat Polis Kontingen Selangor yang diketuai oleh DSP Nur Hamasirin Butnam Kasut telah membuat serbuan ke atas sebuah rumah banglo 2 tingkat di Batu Sembilan, Ceras, Kajang. Bagi mengulas lanjut mengenai kes ini, kita bersama DSP Nur Hamasirin Butnam Kasut, Pegawai Terus D11 Jenayah Seksual dan Kanak-kanak Jabatan Siasatan Jenayah Ibu Pejabat Polis Kontingen Selangor.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Saya DSP Sirin binti Buntenam Ikasuk daripada cawangan D11 Siasatan Seksual Wanita dan Kanak-kanak, Jabatan Siasatan Jenayah Ibu Pejabat Polis Kontijen Selangor. Pasukan kami telah menerima maklumat daripada bahagian Siasatan Cyber Seksual D11 Bukit Aman mengenai perkara berhubung dengan pornografi kanak-kanak. Pasukan kami telah menangkap satu lelaki Melayu berusia 40-an kerana mengakses atau memiliki atau melayari pornografi kanak-kanak. Siasatan akan dijalankan di bawah Seksyen 10 Akta Kesalahan Seksual Terhadap Kanak-kanak 2017. Sekiranya disabit kesalahan, penjara tidak melebihi 5 tahun atau denda tidak melebihi RM10,000 atau kedua-duanya.
Dalam serbuan tersebut turut dirampas sebuah modem, sebuah unit router, sebuah unit CPU, 3 monitor jenama Samsung, 5 keping eksternal hard disk dan sebuah telefon bimbit. Tangkapan dan rampasan dibawa balik ke Ibu Pejabat Polis Daerah Kajang untuk tindakan lanjut. Awas! Bersama kita mencegah jenayah. Kalau bukan kita, siapa lagi?
Not gonna lie, that doesn't look good. So the way that tracking kind of works is they get access to your public information that your equipment that you use to connect to the internet transmits. Like if you have a router, there's something called internet protocol or IP, in which this information is held by your ISP, your internet service provider. So in effect, a government agency, if they believe that you're doing horrendous things with children, can simply track that information by going to your internet service provider and asking them for some key information. Now, many people know that your IP can be tracked publicly anyway, but that will give you sort of like a rough approximation of an area. The government can just bypass all of this, go straight to your ISP and simply say, can you give us exactly the address that this is associated with? In fact, it gets a little bit worse than that, because they could also say, can you then from that tell us the specific IP address locally on that network as to where this data was being sent to. So if your local IP hasn't changed, they can probably figure out what machine this was going to. In other words, I don't see much of a reason to think they got this wrong. Now, Menj actually admits in the video that he does watch pornography. It's just okay pornography, or halal pornography, assumably. Not the child kind. But nonetheless, I think from my understanding, charges were brought. He had a bond set. But my understanding is that he wasn't found guilty in court. So again, I'm just going to say that all this is alleged because it was never officially set in court. Again, my personal opinion is I don't know how they could have made a mistake in this regard, given that it's a government agency that co-opted with an internet service provider. But hey, maybe mistakes happen. Maybe Menj is totally innocent. Sure, Menj. Totally innocent. Did nothing wrong. It was just normal halal pornography. Okay, let's move on to our next case, because like I said, there are 2 Dawah apologists that I would want to put into the spotlight here. The second one is someone of whom is known by the name Khalid. That's his Islamic name, his normal name, I think is Justin. I did a video about this a while back, but I think it's worth just kind of pointing it out because since then, he was found guilty. I think he actually pled guilty to many of the charges that were made against him, including sexual. You know what? It's all the things that you imagine it is. But ultimately, it's him having inappropriate relations with his stepdaughter, who was underage at the time. Apparently, his stepdaughter eventually had the courage to come forth and tell her mom about it. And then her mom pressed charges against him. Khalid tried to make this religious persecution. There's so many air quotes. Religious persecution style thing, but no one at all believed that because that's obviously nonsense. I'm going to show some video, probably from James is Tired, who did an amazing deep dive into this, who happened to know many different atheists and many different Muslims, and Khalid happens to be one of them. In fact, James knows him going all the way back before he even was a Muslim, back when he was an atheist. And so he took it on himself to go straight into this, and he made a really good video about it. So I'll encourage you all to go watch that, and I'll put a link in the description below. Let's take a look.
Alrighty guys, so I'm going to be covering the issue with EADawah, and For those who don't know, EADawah has pled guilty to 2 counts of sex battery and has been sentenced to 12 years in prison. Now, that being said, when he gets out, he'll have to register as a Tier 3 sex offender, and that means he has to check in at the sheriff's office every 90 days for the rest of his life. That being said, the reason why I'm putting out this video is because a lot of the EADawah fans don't know that basic information that I'm giving you. They've also been told a lot of misleading information, false characterizations of the victim, of the mom and the daughter. And so what I will do initially, though, is I'm going to read a statement from the victim's mom, get you guys up to speed. Then I'll show you clips, cut in and out. Very important thing, though, right now to get out of the way. There is a GoFundMe in the chat in the bottom for her to help her out going through this difficult time, situations that she needs money for. And so please check that out. So if I have something important to show you, like a screenshot, it'll be here, right over my Voice of the Martyrs map. If I have a clip, it'll take the full screen, and here we go. So what I'm about to read to you now is from the mother of the victim, her statement concerning the situation and addressing some of the misinformation that's been out there. Now, for those who don't know, Khalil has a large YouTube presence. She does not. So while she's been quiet, she hasn't had this platform to clear up these things because there's certain things she could not talk about. Khalil did have a large platform and often tried to discredit her. Khalil's new Muslim wife often declared and tried to discredit her, as you'll see in some of the clips that I'm showing you. And those clips will come a little bit later in the video. And she says, and I quote, "Some of you absolutely disgust me. Thanks to some in the YouTube and Discord communities, it has been made clear to me that there are many people seriously misinformed about the recent legalities involving my husband, Justin Downing. Yes, he is still my husband. I have no money to file for divorce and am on a waiting list with legal aid to help file for divorce." Now, she says to clarify, and she does these by points. This was not religious persecution. Justin was a piece of blank before his conversion. Justin took advantage of his Muslim supporters to gain a wall of sympathy, a wall of virtual defense and money. Also, I have seen many throughout the YouTube community take advantage of the situation to defend and support their hate of the religion of Islam. That's disgusting. Some believe that Justin became a Muslim because he was a PEDO. I don't believe that. He became a Muslim because he genuinely believed Islam to be the answer. The various forms of abuse Justin perpetrated upon us, he did as an atheist and as a Muslim. Despite my beliefs, I was supportive as I could be of Justin's conversion.
Khalid, or Justin, was the Muslim who was responsible for the EADawah channel. That's not to be confused with some of the other letter-named Dawah channels, but yeah. He was the guy who was responsible for EADawah. So you can make the case here that this is just people acting badly out of their own corrupt nature. It has nothing to do with the beliefs that they hold regarding Islam. And evidently there's some truth in that. I think evidently these people have some pretty dark secrets in their closet and aren't particularly committed to doing the good anymore. Let's put it that way. It is worth mentioning that if you were to take other apologists' perspective into account, notably that of Daniel Pikachu, then you would have to accept that his argument for the permissibility of having sexual relations for a child who has obtained menses, even if that child is 3, 4, 5 years old, does somewhat look pretty bad when you take these things into account. We should reject that. We should reject those kind of arguments. They are pretty messed up, horrible, and deprived arguments that I think clearly are made by people of whom have other motives. I'll leave you to infer what those are. Rather, I would recommend that we follow the Christian perspective, not one that calls into question the fact that it's permissible to have sex with those who have achieved menses at a very young age, but rather that safeguards children by firmly establishing that children are not to be abused, sexually or otherwise, and to instead defend the rights of children to live a life free from such horrors. I'm going to read to you Mark chapter 5, verse 39, following downwards. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him, and went in where the child was. Note how this person is called a child. He took her by the hand and said to her, Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. Those are the words of Jesus Christ according to the Gospel of Mark. Jesus referred to a 12-year-old as a little girl, and in this passage, he heals her and brings her back from the dead. This is the example that Christians have. We don't have a moral example of whom did questionable things regarding children. Rather, we have a moral example that saved, rescued, protected, loved, and honored children to the fullest that humanity can. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever you are, whether Muslim, Christian, atheist, or agnostic, I invite you all to Christianity. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a better way. And it's to follow our Lord Jesus Christ. God bless you all. I hope you have a great day. Take care.